Thank you so much, Puni, and welcome. You are here for a presentation that is extra special, I think. This is for our series, Our Uncommon Grounds. And here at UVA, we stand for exploring the arts, sciences, culture, and history that reflect our identity as a university. You know, and our identity as a university, especially with regard to the arts, is extra special because of the tremendous generosity of those who contribute, and none more so than the Joseph and Robert Cornell Foundation. Melissa, we so appreciate you being here tonight. This really, I think, reflects the vigor and energy within the community. You know, musicians are special people, and Jefferson knew that. He recognized that long before the first brick was placed here at UVA. In fact, in 1779, in January, 4,000 Hessian soldiers and some British officers came and made their home at the Albemarle Barracks. At the time, this was the largest city in Virginia, larger even than Williamsburg. And Jefferson recognized the specialness of musicians and knew that there must be some within the Albemarle Barracks who were musicians that might enjoy playing at Monticello. And so imagine what it was like to be one of those Hessian soldiers traveling up to Monticello to play for Mr. Jefferson. So those students who are going to be playing for us a little bit later today didn't have to go all the way from Albemarle Barracks to the top of Monticello. It's from student housing to here at the solarium. But the special nature of musicians and what they bring to our university is something that we all appreciate so much. I'd like to ask Pam Cowlery to introduce the program for this evening. Thanks, Pam.
Hello, can you guys hear me? So my name is Pam, and I'm going to introduce our speakers all in one fell swoop, so I'm not up and down. Starting back to forward. Cameron, right there. Cameron's originally from Australia, which you might pick up if you talk to him. He has 30 years of experience in arts fundraising. In 2014, he moved to Charlottesville and is currently celebrating 6 years as the Director of University Arts Development at UVA. Cameron sings with the Virginia Consort, which I didn't know, is a self-proclaimed coffee snob, and dreams of playing the cello, which we have here. Next is Ben. I'm not sure where Ben is. There you are. Okay. Ben is our music director with the Charlottesville Symphony. He is admired for his dynamic presence on the podium. Ben was named music director of the Charlottesville Symphony in the spring of 2017 and simultaneously joined the University of Virginia faculty as an associate professor of music. In the summers, he serves as faculty conductor at the Greenwood Music Camp in Berkshire's Western Massachusetts. Sounds lovely. Ben is accomplished on the violin, the viola, and keyboard instruments. He studied at Harvard with an emphasis on composition, graduating with highest honors, and a Doctor of Musical Arts in orchestral conducting at the University of Michigan, where he also studied harpsichord and pursued his interest in dance. On a personal note, it's been a highlight for my husband and me to watch you conduct, Ben. And if anyone here has not seen him in the audience, I feel like everybody has, but you're just missing out. Our musicians here, I understand, is the Altar Quartet. Altar, I hope we pronounced that right. So I'm going to introduce them. On the violin, we have Amina Sibe. Okay, I'm not sure which one that is. And she, there you go. Okay, and she's third year, getting her Bachelor of Arts in Sociology. Phoebe Hall, right there, third year, getting her Bachelor of Science in Chemistry with a specialization in the environment and a BA in French. On the viola, there he is. That's Justin Park, and he's graduating, or right now he's third year, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. Are you graduating like as a third year? Okay, that's nice. And then cello is Lynn Park. You might have to give Cameron some lessons. She is fourth year, Bachelor of Science in Chemistry with a specialization in biochem and a BA in music. I'm going to let Ben talk about the program. Janet Kaltenbach arrived in Virginia in 2009 to become the executive director of the Charlottesville Symphony Society. She comes from a musical family and is a lifelong musician. Prior to 2009, Janet has enjoyed a rewarding career managing symphony orchestras and as the general manager and vice president at the world-renowned American Boy Choir School in Princeton. It's a mouthful. Among many other accomplishments, too long to list. Currently, Janet devotes, I'm going to say all, of her efforts, in addition to what she does, to leading the celebration of the Charlottesville Symphony's 50th anniversary season and positioning it for another 50 years of growth and success prior to retiring this summer. That's our lineup. Hold on. So Janet will go first, then Ben, then our wonderful musicians, Cameron, and then we have a special surprise at the end, and then some Q&A. All right, Janet.
Thank you, Pam, and welcome everyone. It's wonderful to see a full room full of old friends, new friends, soon-to-be friends. We're glad you chose to spend your Thursday evening with us. Just to put our presentation tonight in historical context, would anyone like to take a guess at when symphony orchestras really became a known organizational entity in the fledgling country we now call the United States of America? A little bit later than that. The first big orchestra that you would recognize today was the New York Philharmonic, founded in 1842. 1842. Followed not too long thereafter by the Boston Symphony Orchestra in 1881 and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in 1905. These were eventually joined by the Cleveland Orchestra, the Philadelphia Orchestra, and of course many, many more, but those Cleveland, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, and Chicago became what we know today as the Big Five, and really formed the foundation of the development of symphony orchestras in this country. Today, the League of American Orchestras, which is our national membership service organization, currently counts among its members 2,200 orchestras of all sizes, from the very smallest college orchestra to the majors that I just mentioned. 2,200 orchestras in all 50 states. And it's the Charlottesville Symphony here at the University of Virginia that is a part of that cultural landscape. So, since we are talking about the 50th anniversary of this orchestra, let's time travel. You want to take a time travel trip with me? There were earlier iterations of an orchestra here at the university, some we know more about than others. But looking back across history at UVA, musical history at UVA, we know that there was an orchestra here 100 years ago. So think back to 1924. It was called the Observatory Mountain Orchestra. All volunteers at that point, at least for the first few decades. These were all volunteer ensembles. No endowment at that point, no. No season brochure, no Instagram account, no galas. The next one that we know about was called the University of Virginia Orchestra. It was founded in 1941. Then there was some type of a string orchestra that we don't know very much about that came into being around 1959. And then an unnamed orchestra, just a group of faculty members and some students who came together to play orchestral music, very loosely organized in 1967. Looking ahead from 1967 to 1974, where were you? I know some of you weren't born yet, but for those of us who were here, where were you in 1974? And what were you doing? You don't have to tell, but let me help you along a little bit if you're having trouble remembering. What was happening in the world in 1974? President Nixon resigned after being embroiled in the Watergate scandal. The world population reached 4 billion, B as in Beethoven. The Rubik's Cube puzzle and our favorite office accessory, Post-it notes, were invented in 1974. Movies released across the country in theaters included The Godfather Part 2, Towering Inferno, and Young Frankenstein. Late-night talk show host Jimmy Fallon was born. What was happening in music in 1974? Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly with his song won the Grammy Award for Record of the Year and Song of the Year. The Grammy for Best Classical Performance by an Instrumental Soloist with an Orchestra went to George Solti and, again, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra with Vladimir Ashkenazy performing all 5 of Beethoven's piano sonatas, or concertos, rather. Duke Ellington died in 1974, and revivals of Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story and Candide opened in New York City and London. Getting closer to home, what was happening in Charlottesville in 1974? Yes. We'll get to UVA in a moment. That's also in Charlottesville. Lane High School closed. Lane High School is a name that you may not recognize, but you might know the facility, the structure, as the home now of the Albemarle County office building. The Paramount closed. Bruce Springsteen and his E Street Band performed here at the Memorial Gym. That one really surprised me. I knew that Bruce Springsteen had been out on the road for a long, long time, but I had no idea it had been for a half century. But yes, the band played here on November 17th, 1974. What was happening at UVA? Yes, the first fully co-ed class graduated. And, perhaps most importantly, in history in 1974, the Charlottesville Symphony at the University of Virginia was created by its first professional music director, Douglas Hargrave. As an aside, we recently reconnected with Doug Hargrave through the wonderful outreach efforts of Mary Buckle Searle and Stuart Searle. Stuart has spent quite a bit of time with Doug interviewing him for a 50th anniversary project that we're entrenched in right now, and it's been lovely to get to know him again and start to include him in local functions. He and his wife are actually still here in town. Doug was hired as the first music director, as I said, and he conducted the orchestra until 1991. He was followed after that by Carl Roscott, who was here from 1991 until his death in 2006. Michael Salon, the current director of the UVA University Singers, lent a hand as interim music director from 2006 for about a year and a half. Kate Tamarkin, whom many of you know, became the music director, arrived in Charlottesville to take this position in 2006, and retired from the orchestra and UVA in 2017, at which time we welcomed our current music director, Ben Rouse. Not long after that, the Charlottesville Symphony Society was formed and incorporated as an independent nonprofit corporation, guided by a board of wonderful community leaders, some of whom are in the room tonight, and a professional staff to provide much of the orchestra's management, financial, and marketing support. So over these past 5 decades, the orchestra has grown from a small community ensemble to a full-blown symphony orchestra of over 100 members. They include professional musicians in all of the principal musician chairs, very, very dedicated volunteer community members who come from a wide variety of professional backgrounds unrelated to music, and of course our students representing a wide range of academic disciplines, some of whom you heard during the introductions of our quartet. We also, just to give you another example, we have someone this year in the nursing school, and we have someone in the medical school, which is extraordinary if you think about the schedule that a medical student has to maintain, and still he finds time to play in the orchestra. He's one of our oboists and English horn players. As we've mentioned, the 24-25 season, which we're currently in, recognizes the 50th anniversary of this extraordinary organization, and we are celebrating on a variety of ways, some of which Ben will talk about in a few moments. But to summarize the scope and the breadth of the orchestra's current programming, we offer 5 pairs of Masterworks concerts. Those are the backbone of what we do, presenting classical compositions, both new and old, with a scattering of pops programming here and there, and of course, our very popular annual family holiday concerts that we co-produce with the University Singers. We also have such a joyful time collaborating with various partner organizations in the community, most notably in recent years, our collaboration with Charlottesville Ballet. Emily Hartka is here tonight. Thank you. We provide the orchestra for Charlottesville Ballet's production of the Nutcracker, presented both here and in Lynchburg. We've done that for 2 seasons now and are looking forward to returning for a 3rd next December. On the opposite end of the scale, for our teeny-weeny, littlest listeners, we have such a wonderful time at the Virginia Discovery Museum, where we've relaunched a program called Tunes and Tales. We were there 2 weeks ago for a reading and musical presentation of Giraffes Can't Dance. Giraffes Can't Dance. And we're again joined by one of Charlottesville Ballet's wonderful dancers to help with the cha-cha and the waltz and the tango. It was great, great fun. We also offer an extensive music education program that is now reaching K through 12 students in about 7 counties across Central Virginia. Those include our usually sold-out youth concerts here at Old Cabell Hall. We do close to 80 K through 8 lecture demonstrations, instrument lecture demonstrations in schools across the central part of the state. We offer private lesson scholarships for deserving student members of the Charlottesville Symphony. We have a very popular program called Play It Again, in which we accept gently used instruments that have been in your closets and your garages and need a new home. We refurbish them and get them into the hands of students in under-resourced schools where families cannot afford to rent or buy instruments for kids who really want to learn to play. And that has been, I think, one of the most rewarding additions to our repertoire in recent years. And then we offer free Sunday concert tickets to families of students in private, public, and home schools throughout the region, giving them an opportunity to, perhaps for the first time, experience a live symphony orchestra. All of those are free, paid for by contributions from our wonderful donors, as well as endowed funds that make it possible to keep all of our education programs thriving throughout the region. So I hope just giving you a little snapshot of where we've come from will help you see that the Charlottesville Symphony here at the University of Virginia is truly a cultural treasure and a leader in our vibrant arts scene here locally. And as Pam said, we are so very grateful for everyone's support that have brought us to this celebratory place today, and look forward to spending another 50 years with all of you making great music. Thank you so much.
With the theme of the past that we've just gotten and the present and the future, my job is to be present, which is rather terrifying. But I thought that I would take this chance to sort of describe a view of Charlottesville Symphony and its uniqueness kind of from the inside out. As you may know, we are a semi-student, semi-professional, semi-community ensemble. Our members are a unique mixture of slices of this community that we're in, these concentric communities of Charlottesville and of UVA and of musicians kind of within both of those. And we've looked and we've not found an exact analog for Charlottesville Symphony anywhere. There are similar orchestras in some ways. Some of them seem to be basically college orchestras that hire a few giggers. And that's different from what we are, which is students who play alongside their full-time professor as members of the same section. And we haven't found this particular blend playing our type of concert schedule anywhere else in the country. And it's a quite unique model that's allowed for what I think is, well, it's allowed for a lot of positive things. It's allowed for a sense of community in an orchestra that you don't get in another kind of orchestra, a kind of a real sense of who we are that's can be quite absent from the average orchestral experience, unfortunately. So fortunately for us, we have that built-in community, and then we have this amazing community of Charlottesville and UVA in terms of how to make music, who we're making music for, and who we can make music with. So two things that I saw immediately with this orchestra as great strengths were there are a lot of things. Its loyal public is one of the most amazing ones. But moreover, not just people come, but that I sensed that we had a curious audience. I sensed that we had an audience that was inquisitive and that we could really go places other than the standard overture, concerto, symphony that you expect from a symphonic performance. And the other thing that we have to draw on is this fantastic community of music professionals, mostly, although not all, within the UVA music department. And so our collaborations that we can just draw from the department already are a way of exploding and expanding what a symphony orchestra concert can be. But it's perfectly logical for us to bring in these people, since we're in this aegis, and there's a great synergy of interest across the university community. When we do things like feature a jazz quintet with orchestra, that's different. When we feature an Afrofuturist percussionist with orchestra, that's yet another thing. When we feature a creative cross-genre flutist on her composition, that's a third thing. And then when you add them all together and everybody comes on stage to play in their own styles and you loop bolero around all their styles, it becomes a really memorable type of thing that you couldn't possibly do anywhere in the world other than Charlottesville. And that's what I thought that Charlottesville Symphony could be. And so I'd say where we are is this place where we can really experiment, where we've got a test tube, where we can do things that in other places would either be physically or logistically or cost prohibitively impossible, but more to the point, which people would be afraid of in other communities. I cannot program the music of Kaya Sariaho across the state, let's just say, but I can program it here with the idea that we're in this together and that we're going to explore it together and that we're going to all be curious together. I felt real safety in leading in that sort of way, and I felt like Charlottesville Symphony now is this amazing, might I say, innovative organization, and that given this unique structure that we've got that nobody else has, you might see a lot more of Charlottesville symphonies coming along in the future, because I think it's a really robust model that is ready to be exported. That's the long and short of it in terms of where we are now. And I could go on about the collaborations we've done. Janet beat me to the punch with Emily Hartka in the room. But I'll just say about our connection with the Charlottesville Ballet that it's going to get a little bit emotional. We walked out of the pandemic together. We were, our first times playing live, the first show we did in the Paramount after that was with dance. And when we couldn't do anything live, we were doing things virtually in collaboration with the ballet during the pandemic. So this connection, as well as within the department and other collaborations that we're able to do, are really definitive of the uniqueness of this orchestra and the opportunities that it sees. As it happens right now, we're in the middle of rehearsing a piece for rapper and orchestra, which, yes, it's been done in other places, but it hasn't been done quite in this way in other places, with music that's actually orchestrally conceived. And we can do that, again, with our own professor of hip-hop. I recommend his music to everyone, with the caveat that it's not easy to listen to, that it's difficult to listen to specifically, and that's why it's interesting. So I've had great difficulty listening to all of the music that he's ever put out, which I've now done, because it's not easy to hear, but I'm curious about it, and that's why I trust our audience to be curious about it along with me. And again, not because it's easy to hear. And we're in the middle of simultaneously preparing what to me is now the most monumental entry in the symphonic repertoire, which is Mozart's Requiem Mass. So an orchestra's ability to do these things, which are so different from each other, from this what might be ragged edge innovation to this other hugely important thing that orchestras do, which is to preserve memory, to be conservators of memory, to be our bridges to the past, to a piece like Mozart Requiem, which takes just even the cultural gravitas of the Latin Requiem Mass and treats it with such divine craft, is what I'll call Mozart. That engaging with this piece anew it feels like a sacred rite. It's been unbelievably deep for me, and just the opportunity to pair these things together into what's going to be kind of a mind-bending program is really deeply cherished, I think, and unique to Charlottesville. Now, because of this wonderful, curious audience that we've had, I've often smuggled music appreciation lectures into concerts, which is another thing that I can't do elsewhere, but it seems completely natural at UVA. And so that was enough about, conceptualizing, so I thought we would actually have some music. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Lynn Park, Justin Park, Phoebe Hall, Amina Sibai. Tunings for the week. What we're going to hear is this nocturne written by Alexander Borodin, Russian composer. And what I wanted to tell you about it are 2 or 3 things before you hear it, so that when you hear it for the first time, it's not the first time. One is that Borodin was a fantastic melodist, and there aren't actually that many in history who could write a melody like this. So what I want to ask the musicians to do is play the first half of this melody, because the melody comes in two halves, played by Cameron's future instrument, the cello. And the first half of the theme has this way of kind of turning around the corner and returning home. That then the second time it gets to that point, the journey home is much more elaborate and much more involved and wanders off in this whole other direction that's really quite remarkable. But now that you know like the key to how he made this melody sound so graceful, you can appreciate what he's done here. So let's hear the first half of this melody, and I'm going to show you where there's kind of like the diversion point to head home. So that's the first half of the theme. Now, check out what happens the next time that Borodin gets to that intersection. So it's quite a long way around the bend there, isn't it? And that ability to kind of spin out effortlessly and almost infinitely is what I think really separates Borodin as a writer of tunes. That's one thing that I actually think can't be taught, is how to write a melody. Now, bizarrely, this movement has radically contrasting music in it. The next section you're going to hear is like as different as could be. So could you guys play letter B for like 4 bars? Sorry. It's a really weird place to start, sorry. To interrupt you there. So there's this whole other mood kind of takes over the piece. It seems to me really jarring. Just like it's this whole, it's such a different world from that original melody, right? So, Amina, what do you do about that? Do you try to make it sound the same, or do you try to make it sound different?
Am I making what sound the same?
B versus what came before.
Different. Yeah.
Just as different as possible.
I think it still has to be kind of still romantic, but still it's a very different character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is interesting. What's continuous in music and what's different? I put her on the spot because I had Amina in orchestration, in the orchestration class as well as in orchestra. So it's interesting to have your students in different contexts. And now I feel licensed to torture you in this context. So yeah, whole different world, kind of comes in. But there's that idea of continuity and the romanticism is, yeah, I hear that in what you're doing already, and I'm excited to hear them play this whole piece all the way through. But one thing to mention is when the melody returns, I don't want you to miss out on this lovely solo has become a duet. And so you hear the melody in a canon where there's a leading voice and a following voice, and if you listen really closely, you'll hear the distance between them has to change. If it didn't change, it would clash with the harmony. And so they have to negotiate this relationship as it changes contexts. So we're going to play just that phrase at E, yeah. All right, I think we should stop there. So that's enough of my interrupting your enjoyment of music, but I think these signposts help us to kind of get the sense of just the vast journey that this piece takes in a short amount of time.
Hi, everybody. That's a hard act to follow, isn't it? That was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. And I have to say, the symphony's in such great hands with Ben leading and Janet together. They're such a great team, and it's great to see the history and where they've come, but it's the future, I think, is very, very strong. So congratulations to everybody. I'm going to talk about the Centre for the Arts, which I'm sure you've all heard about, but I'm going to start right from make sure everybody's all on the same page, and we'll keep going on here. Ooh, this is the bit. Yes. So I think you recognise that. I want you to put that in your mind, envision that look right there, so you know where it is. That's the view from Old Cabell Hall, and I want you to keep that in your mind as I'm talking through some of these slides here tonight, so we can talk through that. All right, let's have a look at where we are. It's the Centre for the Arts. There is the red part there on Emmett Ivy. It's about the same size as the Academical Village. It's 14 acres. It joins up the grounds from around the Academical Village through to the sports, so the athletics fields. But that's where it is on Emmett Ivy. I'm sure you've seen what's going on there. I just want to make sure everybody knows. So here's a little outfit of what's actually happening on this space. The School of Data Science is built and opened, and there's a new data science building is going to go up next to that. That has already been paid for, and that's going to start building. Ooh, no, there it is, don't play with it. The Virginia Guest House, which is the hotel and conference centre there, that is almost being finished. I think it's going to be finished in the fall. That's going to hold 215 people and have a conference for, can hold a conference for 500 people. The Karsh Institute of Democracy is broken ground, and I think that's going to be finished probably in about 18 months' time. So there's a lot of building going on there. The student housing there on top on the left there has just been approved, and that's for, I think, 800 students are going to be there. And that's second year student housing. So this area will be very alive, which is terrific. There'll be people living there, and also be a through from grounds all the way to athletics. So the last piece of the puzzle is the Centre for the Arts. That was taken some time ago, but it gives you an idea of a construction of what it looks like. There's a Virginia Guest House, this mound of dirt. Up there in the middle is the Karsh, and that's moved a lot. I think this was taken about a year ago. I just want to point out where the data science building is there, and down behind there's a pond. And that was actually built for storm drainage, but it actually is an amphitheatre they've created there. So that's going to be part of what the Centre for the Arts be used as part of the Centre for the Arts as well. So this would all have happened without Tessa Ada. Tessa's $50 million gift got this off the ground in September 2021. And it was for the Performing Arts Centre. Richard and Tessa had accessibility trouble, couldn't get to the Old Cabell Hall. Tessa wanted to make sure that the community had a wonderful performing arts centre. It was an extraordinary gift, and it really got things going with the Centre for the Arts, so for the Performing Arts Centre. And it's now the Tessa and Richard Ada Performing Arts Centre. It has been named, and so we're looking forward to getting that built. So the Performing Arts Centre, it's an academic building, and it's also a community building. And where it's a 1,200-seat large hall, and I'm not using concert hall because it will be used for various things, but it's a 1,200-seat large hall. There'll be 156 smaller hall for recitals, perfect for string quartets, perfect for a lot of solos, auditions and things like that can happen there. There's a large rehearsal room for music and dance that will fit the orchestra, so the orchestra can rehearse there. There is a dedicated home for dance, and there'll be a lot of number of spaces throughout that will have sprung floor for dance as well. And there's a flexible lobby space. And that's really important because it's an academic building, we want to make sure that we can use it as a performance building, but also an academic building, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But the name of what Tessa had was a Performing Arts Centre, so I just want to make sure you you're reading that. But what we're building now is a centre for the arts. Tessa's gift really made the university really think about the arts and how we could expand on that. And so it's been, over the last 3 years, really developing what that can look like, a centre for the arts. The cornerstone is the Performing Arts Centre, which we talked about. The music department is moving across there as well, and I know the students can attest to the wonderful conditions underneath Old Cabell Hall, with rehearsal rooms, finding space, which really has been inadequate for far too long. So there'll be practice rooms, there'll be specialised classrooms, there'll be presentations and concerts all the way through, and we want to make sure it's integrated with the Performing Arts Centre. So when the performing art is not being used and hasn't been hired, the music department will be able to use that space. And so it's been designed in that way that it can be used. And wonderful thing, especially for the orchestra, moving instruments, very large instruments across from their music department will all be on one level. So imagine that, Janet. You won't have to get a truck. The museums are going to move there as well. So the Fraley Museum of Art, which is at the Bailey Building, and then the Kluge-Ruhe Aboriginal Art Collection, which if people haven't been there, it's 4 miles out of town up on Pantops. So bringing that to grounds. They're two extraordinary museums. The Kluge-Ruhe is the most extraordinary museum, and to bring those and really expand their opportunities, both with educational but also too with exhibit space. So that is the centre for the arts, and that's what we're building, and that's what we want to do. So architects have been chosen. I think there were 48 applications for this job. It was the largest application they had at the university to build this building. We have Diamond Schmidt is one of them, and 3 of them came together. They just did the Geffen Hall. They've done a number of university halls, but they've done Geffen Hall in New York City. Annabelle Seldorf from Seldorf Architects is working on this. They're just the Frick. I think it's just about to open next month, a new extension of the Frick. She's done the National Gallery in London, so the galleries all around the world. And VMDO have done that beautiful Contemplative Commons. If you haven't been in that building, just opposite Central, then go and visit it because it's beautiful. In fact, don't go and visit it, pay for the gala, and then you can go and visit. Right. So I was getting the nod there to go and visit that. So they're that came together, the 3 architects that came together. So it's an extraordinary group of people that have come together for this building. So that's what I want to recall what we saw before when we're looking down here. If you look through that view, there's sort of a rotunda in the middle there. So what we're looking at here on the left is the Data Science Building. Straight down the middle is the Karsh Institute. The Virginia Guest House to the right of that. In front of that is a schematic. This is not an architectural drawing. It's just a schematic. And it was the initial schematic that presented to the Board of Visitors in December. It will change. It is changing. But this is what I can show you at the moment because they're still working on that. I don't think it's going to change that much, but there will be some changes. So I just want to make sure that you're understanding when you're looking at this is not the final product. And that's Emmett Street there in the front. So there is if you were at the pond level, which I talked about before, you could be sitting outside and you can see a lot of glass that is around from there. You could have simulcasts. Piece, Ben. Film festival could be there. This is the entrance to the museum, and that's the Virginia Guest House there, and between that is the road that leads into the parking garage, which is staying there. It's the only part that is staying on that side is the parking garage. You never take parking away at UVA. There's a turning circle in there. You can actually drop people off right outside the museum and then go into the parking garage. The one fantastic thing about having it so close to that Virginia Guest House is there's no catering needed in the museum, which means you can maximise the space that is in that museum. You go to a lot of museums now and there's a lot of space taken up with their cafes, restaurants, members' lounges and all of that kind of stuff. That is all going to be in here. On that ground floor, which is, you can see the light part there, that's going to be cafes, coffee shops and things like that. Right at the top, there'll be restaurants, rooftop bars and things, and wonderful things like that that you can look at straight over to the Blue Ridge Mountains. That is the entrance into the music department. And if you were coming along Emmett Street from DC and arriving, that would be what you would see. That would be when the railway bridges cross over there. All right, let's have a look at a few spaces here. We've got 800 parking spaces. Everybody wants to know about the parking. 800 spaces there, so which is wonderful. There is another parking garage that's going to be built for athletics, a very large one, so it'll keep the athletics parking away from this, which is terrific. I'm noting the two purple lines there. They're the really poorly ones that I did, and that shows how you can get in. You can come out of the parking garage, you can drop off at that turning circle, or you can park the garage and come into the front through the museum and walk along the bottom there, which is a corridor that goes all the way through, a passageway that goes all the way through, or you can come at the other end and you come into the Performing Arts Centre there. This is all on one level, and so accessibility is fantastic. So I'm just going to go just to have a look at the colour scheme here. Museums is in red, and when you walk into the museum, it's a main entrance there, and your bag drop off and things like that for schools. And then the yellow is the shared area. So if you're walking along the corridor there, on the left-hand side would be the ground floor of the music department. You've got various rooms in there. And then the first blue section you come to is experiential art, and I'll talk a little about that a little bit more. Then you get the Performing Arts Centre in the blue there, which is the main concert hall and things. Right at the end, the blue right at the end is dance. That's a dedicated dance area. And I think the top blue is for hip-hop. There's a room for hip-hop there. So that is sort of, I just want to give you an outline of what it's going to look like. This is not final, and these are not designs. So, all right, if we were looking at it from a vertical, you can see the museum galleries go over the top of everything, and that's where all their space is over there. Music department, you can see where they are, and then the Performing Arts takes over most of it there on the right. If you took a slice out from the side, on the left-hand side here is the museums. The corridors going down, you can see some space for the music. You keep going into the foyer area, and then if you keep going across, you can see dance. The floor above that is where the rehearsal is going to be, the large rehearsal room where the orchestra will rehearse in there. Close to the concert hall, a lot of access, and when it's not being used and people are in the concert hall, they can have access to those rooms, so if they're going to need those when they've booked it. So I'm going to go from the museum lobby now, and we're going to walk down what it would be like if you came in from the parking garage and you were on that ground floor and you came into the museum lobby. Museum lobby is pretty open, and it's really directional to get to the right. You'd be going down to the music department and the Performing Arts Centre, or you'd be deciding which part of the museum you wanted to go to if you were going left. This is open, and so they don't need security here. So there's no paintings that are at this level. This is more facilities, put your bag in, things like that. And then you decide where you're going to go from the museum at that point. If you went up to the galleries, some of the gallery spaces of what they're considering. There's a Klugeroo there. So if you're walking around this shared space through the promenade, this is inside. There's a space like this. There's a promenade inside. There's another one that is outside as well. But you could walk through that. This has got music students there during the day, probably some at night. So if people coming to the Performing Arts Centre, there'll be music students that would be there. Probably not that many. They do have other spaces they could go to. They won't always be there. There are a number of different rooms in the music department. They're looking at the acousticians they've got in to really what type of ensembles will be there. So there's a loud one, there's a live one, there's a smaller one. They've thought about what is going to be there, what kind of furniture, what the acoustics is going to be. And then we move into the lobby area, and you can see sort of the sweeping going up there to the mezzanine. And but if you came in and you were in a wheelchair or anything like that, he can get straight into the auditorium. So it's all on one level. Everything is on one level. So accessibility is terrific. Obviously there are elevators that people can use as well. There'll be box office areas there. And some of those box offices, they're now considering how they're going to use them. I don't know if anyone's been to the Whitney recently. They've got mobile box offices that go away. They just wheel them all away where they don't need them. And they're considering whether they're going to do that or they need something more permanent. But the interior design, they're really thinking about how you can use it academically, but also use it for when people have hired the hall, when there's a symphony concert on. So recital hall, it's on the 3rd floor, that holds about 150 people. The performance lab, now this is a sort of a black box or white box configuration. You can use it for whatever you want. This could be used for music, this could be used for multimedia, it can be used for music with art, it can be used in any way you want. They want to make it as flexible as possible, and they want to give people the opportunity to really spend time in here, as in when you're creating things, this is not a quick, you can do it in a day. You might need 3 weeks to pull things together. So this is how they're thinking of how they're going to use this space. This is not what the dance is going to look like. This is this is what Diamond Schmidt did for Lubbock Ballet. But it's similar in that they will have their own dance space. So this is a large rehearsal room that I was talking about for the symphony. You can see there it's pretty bland, obviously it's not designed, but they had meetings this week about flooring, about what they're going to put on the walls, what kind of seats, all of that. So the architects are moving constantly about getting things done, and we'll talk about timing in a minute. So we move into the large hall that's set up here for a Beethoven piano concerto, he says. That is a guess. And you can see the various levels that are there. The way it's set up, this is the way it's set up for orchestra. Actually, I want to go back one. And just look at the back of the stage, how it's all enclosed. So sound-wise, they're thinking about how it's going to be, what's the best sound for the orchestra and how they're going to create that. And if you look in the next one, where that sound is, that shell is completely tight. So the sound's not escaping anywhere. They've really thought about the sound and how you use that sound. Obviously there'll be doors for the orchestra to get in and out of, but it's very much for the orchestra. If it was in film form, this is what it could look like if Virginia Film Festival was there. If you're in theatre form, and more importantly, Emily, what would we do for dance? So I know you're finding space to have a ballet, but Nutcracker could be here. So that would be terrific to actually have it here, but be able to set up for opera, for musical theatre, so with the orchestra in the pit there. So there's a lot of flexibility in this space. They've worked out sound-wise how it's going to work. They've worked out all the flies, what that's going to look like as well. So there's a lot of thought gone into the sound, and it has to go into sound. It's a very expensive place, this. It's very expensive, and the reason it's expensive, it's because if you don't get it right, you've built another mem gym. So you have to get it right. So this is the timeline. The schematics were presented to the Board of Visitors in December. They're considering this at the moment, and it's for design review. And they'll be meeting again in March. I don't think they're going to have a decision by then. They're going to probably look in June for approval. They're doing a lot of work with the architects at the moment to get to a point where they will approve it. It's gone into the state budget. Now, this is really important. We haven't been in the state budget for 3 years. University has not received any capital works funding from the state government for 3 years. We are in the budget this year, which we're very excited about. It goes to the governor for either approval, for veto, or for amendment. We expect there will be changes, so we're not sure exactly how much we will receive, but it's in there, and we're very positive about it that it's got this far, so we're very excited about it. This has always been a state, UVA, and philanthropic venture, but we're very positive of where it is with the state, and we hope that, we don't know when the announcement is going to be made, but taken the last 3 years, it's probably going to be June. But we're hoping that it might be sooner, who knows. So that's the proposed opening is fall for 2029. So it's a pretty quick build once it gets done. But it's very exciting. This is by far the most we've got to over the 30 years this has been discussed at UVA, but it is very positive. Nobody is blocking this. Everybody wants it to happen. It's the #1 capital works project for the university, has been for 4 years, and if this funding comes through from the Commonwealth, it will be approved and we'll move very quickly on it. So construction support. Obviously, we're working with the state to get that UVA looking at and philanthropic support for construction. But more importantly, I think what is going to happen is what happens next. And so operating and programming support are going to be vital for the next part. And that's the more interesting part than the construction. Now, that doesn't mean for UVA, that means the orchestra is going to need more programming and operational support because they're going to have to expand what they're doing because they have to use this space. So it gives Ben a lot of he'll be able to really look at how to use that space, and he's going to need a lot more money to do it, aren't you, Ben? Yes, he is. It'll be the same with all the different organisations going in there. UVA Arts will be expanding what they're doing as well. So philanthropic programming support and operating support will be a UVA philanthropic venture. So the construction support is sort of like the first step, and then we're moving into that second step over the next 4 years to really build that for when this opens. Thank you. That was a bit quick, but hopefully, if you've got any questions, are you going to do questions, Pam, for everybody? At the end. At the end? Okay, great. I think that's
it. I thought it only right to cap things off with another offering from these fantastic student musicians. So without further ado, we're going to bring them back up.
It's a tango for una cabeza by Carlos Gardel.
Does anyone have any questions? We're all stunned. We have no words. Enjoy your spring break. Yes. Thank you so much. Last time for questions? Yes.
What is the seating for the Performing Arts Center compared to Old Cabell Hall?
846.
Old Cabell Hall is 846, and this one's 1200, the large hall. Yep.
This is a question a bit ahead of its time, but what will be the governance structure that would allocate use of this facility to competing requirements like the ballet and the symphony and the opera and road shows? And there'll be a lot of demand, it would seem to me, and not all times of the year are exactly as attractive as other times. Will it be a board or something, or some kind of a governance structure that will allocate the use?
It hasn't been decided yet. I know what I'd like, but I think it will probably sit with the Vice Provost for the Arts because it's an outward-facing entity, like the Virginia Film Festival, the Theatre Festival, things like that, the museums, and they're outward-facing. And so it makes sense to put it under the Vice Provost for the Arts and run it that way. How they're going to set it up with boards or whatever, I do not know. I would have thought, though, the booking system, I think, for it will be probably similar to what they have now. The university will look at what they've got. There's already, I think, they're saying 270 nights of the year it's going to be used by the university. So those things, I think it'll work on the same principle as how it works now with the booking system. And who's next? Then Janet would know more about that, how that works.
Anyone else? There.
How do you think this new wonderful facility will affect the Paramount and other places in Charlottesville? You were waiting for that question.
Yes. So we see this as complementing what the Paramount does. The Paramount doesn't have the facilities to host a lot of, like, they have no backstage and things like that. So that would complement what the Paramount is doing. We also see the ecosystem, the arts ecosystem of Charlottesville rising. So people coming to Charlottesville to see shows which will impact all the arts across Charlottesville. So I think it's an important part of it. But I think the Paramount will say now that they turn away shows because they haven't got the facilities that they have. So this is what this facility will do.
Anyone else?
Will this be the premier arts facility in the state of Virginia when this is done?
I wouldn't like to say. It serves the purpose of what Charlottesville and UVA needs. So it'll be, from a Centre for the Arts perspective, and having these three together, that is extraordinary on any level. I think there's one or two other universities that have got that. But to have the music department right next to the Performing Arts Centre, and then on top of that, you've then got the museums. The artistic integration of those, I think, is quite extraordinary. From facility-wise, I'm sure people have got other facilities that probably that will suit what they need, but I think for what Charlottesville needs, what the university needs, this is an excellent facility. It's never going to be perfect for everybody, it never is, but it's an extraordinary facility, and the thought that they're putting into it of how they're going to use it and making sure that it is the best that it can be, watching this process is phenomenal.
Will this allow any programs that are up in the DC area to come here?
Kennedy Centre might have a few to come to us. I don't know. It's going to be about shows coming here. We'll think about what the cost of putting that show on to the will the population support it. So with 1,200 seats, you may not get some of the very expensive shows because that would mean the seat prices would be, $300 or something like that. Well, New York price really. But for other touring shows, it would definitely put that on. We just don't attract them at the moment because we just don't have the facilities. So it's anticipated we will get shows for sure that'll come through, and they'll use Charlottesville as a stop.
What might become of Old Cabell Hall?
There are other people here. The Old Cabell Hall will be refurbished, so it's an architectural gem. It's fantastic. It was actually built for spoken word, and but I think the interior. I don't think much will be done to the interior. It'll mainly be the underneath part. It needs renovating. It certainly needs fixing. There's a lot of spaces, heating and a whole range of things. It's pretty bad. And I find it the most uncomfortable place to sit as well. So I don't know what they're going to do about the seating, but they certainly will be looking at that. The other question will be, which I'm going to anticipate, is what will happen to the Fralin and what's going to go there. I think it'll probably be the front door for the School of Architecture. Again, there's a whole group in the UVA that will sort that out of what's going to happen, and Kluge Ruhe will be moving, so I'm not sure what will be happening to that space as well, at the Kluge Ruhe. And the various music departments, so they will still be using Old Cabell Hall for performances, for sure, but it will be renovated.
I've got a question in terms of the logistics of the parking. You've got 800 spaces in Emmett Ivy Garage, which is the overflow from when there's both baseball and basketball at JPJ. Plus, you're going to have 800 students living there. Is that going to be sufficient? I mean, I'm just looking at what could be a parking nightmare if you have a basketball game, a baseball game, and a performance at the same time.
So they're building another parking garage in the athletics field somewhere, over there somewhere. But they have thought about that, and they want to make sure that people keep away from that for athletics, because they don't want people parking in there. And so that's why they're building another one, a much larger one. I think it's quite close to JPJ. There we go. Yeah. So they've thought about that. Now, with the students with second year, they're also encouraging them not to bring their cars. I don't quite know how they're going to do that, but that is part on the agenda as well. And so they did have a conversation about that some months ago, about reducing students bringing their cars and how they can do that. I don't know how they can do that, but they're thinking about it. There will be parking in that area where the students are as well, but they're hoping, or they're going to work out some way to reduce the number of cars the students bring.
Well, on behalf of the Colonnade Club, we want to thank Cameron and Janet, Ben, and the musicians, and all of you for coming out on this wonderful Thursday night. Thank you.